This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door, and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick, and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus, and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified.
Part 2. There I am at the McDonald's drive-thru on the phone with Taylor Nation. They said, the sender is really concerned about you not getting the package. And I was like, I'm at college, it's 3.5 hours away, it's basketball season, I have practice every day this week. I can't go home, but my mom has it. Taylor Nation said, okay, great, we're glad it made it there. When can you go home? And I said, well, I can go home on Friday. And they said, great, the sender will be watching your social medias to see your post. So since it said confidential message, I'm still scared to say anything. So I go on Tumblr and make a vague post with no tags that says, Taylor, I'm at college, but I'll be home Friday. And I got a response. She sent me a Santa emoji. As I'm online, I see posts from 3 other people. Guess what they got in the mail? Christmas presents that were hand wrapped from Taylor Swift. So I start freaking out because I have to wait 3 days before I can go home and see what's in this package. In 2014, I followed Taylor Swift on Tumblr, and she followed me back and started liking and reblogging my posts. And then a few days after her 1989 album came out, I got a really weird DM on my personal Twitter. And it was from Taylor Nation, and it said, confidential message, hi Alyssa, a friend of ours is sending you a package. It should be arriving to you sometime tomorrow. Let us know when it gets to you. Thanks, winky face. And I was a little bit creeped out because, they never asked for my address. I don't know how they found my Twitter. But I was like, cool, they're sending me some merch, it'll be fine. So I texted my mom and told her to look out for something from Taylor Nation, and then she called me the next day, and I was in class, and I had to leave class, and I was like, hello? And she was like, hey, you didn't get anything from Taylor Swift, but FedEx just dropped off this huge package, and it says it's from Nashville, but it doesn't have a return address, and I don't know what it is. So that night, I was in the McDonald's drive-thru, and I got a call from Taylor Nation, and they were like, hey, you were supposed to get a package today. The sender is really concerned that you haven't posted on Tumblr.
This is why things are never as they seem. Once there was a man who didn't want to get married because he didn't want to spend money on anyone else. He thought that if he got married, he would have to pay for his wife's food, clothes, and other items, which he didn't want to do. However, one day he came across a beautiful young woman who oddly never ate a single thing. He thought this was perfect. He wouldn't have to pay for her food and she could be his wife. He quickly asked her to marry him. But of course, things are not as they seem. He noticed that his supply of food was disappearing even though he never saw his wife eat. So one day he decided to spy on her. And what he saw was terrifying. He saw his wife's hair part in the back, revealing a huge mouth on the back of her head. Her skull split open and the mouth was unnaturally wide with huge teeth. Then he watched as his wife's hair twisted into a long strand, grasped handfuls of food and shoved it into the mouth on the back of her head. When she noticed her husband, she attacked him. He managed to get away and hide in the mountains. Weeks later, when he got the courage to return, he found his wife gone and all of his food taken. The man never married again. If you've ever thought about getting your ears pierced, don't do what she did. This is the urban legend about a girl in Japan who tried to do it, then ended up with horrifying consequences. So this young girl really wanted to get her ears pierced. After some pleading with her parents, they finally agreed and gave her some money to go do it. But instead, the girl kept the money and decided to pierce them herself and let her friend help her. They heated up a large needle and went for it one day. It was painful, but in the end, she was happy she could finally wear earrings. However, this wouldn't last long. One day in school, she felt an intense pain in her left ear. Her earlobe was itchy, and by the end of the day, she had a headache. She went into the bathroom and saw her ear was very inflamed. Then she looked closer and saw a piece of white string sticking out of her new piercing. She picked and pulled at it, which only made the string longer. Now it was hanging out of her earlobe. The string seemed to be endless. The more she pulled, the longer it got. Finally fed up, she took a pair of scissors and cut the string. Suddenly, everything went black. There was a burning pain in her ears and her eyes. She began to scream. In the hospital, it was revealed that it wasn't a piece of string at all. She had pulled out a piece of her optic nerve and cut it. She would be blind for the rest of her life. Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of 8 college students who went on a mountain climbing trip that went terribly wrong. One of them went insane and the other one went missing. But what really happened here, and what are the rest of them hiding? All the clues are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these 8 college students decided to climb the tallest mountain in their area, but the weather took an unexpected turn for the worse and they ended up stranded there for 2 weeks, unable to come back down. After 2 weeks, a rescue team found them, but there were only 7 of them left. The 8th climber was missing, and the 7th climber had gone completely insane and had to be put in a mental hospital. The remaining 6 climbers made a full recovery, and when the police began questioning them, all their answers were the same. They say the 8th climber went to find help and never came back. Then the police went to the mental hospital to talk to the 7th climber, just to see if he knew something that the rest of them didn't. But when they tried to talk to him, all he did was bang his head on the wall and repeat 8888. What happened to the missing 8th climber? And what drove the 7th climber to insanity? Can you solve this mystery?
Part 2 of why sleeping in might just save your life. After talking to the bus driver, my mom came back looking terrified, but she didn't say anything about it and told me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but my mom would end up telling me a few years later. When she went to the second bus, she found out it was being driven by my regular driver and it was full of other kids that are usually on my route. By the way, the other bus was empty. My mom asked the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. He tells her that he never called in sick and there is no substitute driver on his route. The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic and told my mom to go inside and call the police and report this incident, which she did without me knowing at the time. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would never have made it to school or back home. And if we hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus.
This is why you should never talk to strangers in an elevator. One day, a surgeon was working the night shift at a hospital. He just finished his operation on a patient and was going to the basement. He entered the elevator and there was one other woman already inside. They were casually chatting when the elevator door opened and another woman was about to enter. But the surgeon looked horrified. He quickly slammed the close button and punched the highest floor of the building. Surprised, the woman asked why he was being so rude and wouldn't let the other woman in the elevator with them. The surgeon explained that in this hospital, all patients wear white wristbands with their names printed on them, but the red wristbands are placed on all of the corpses. The surgeon then looks to the woman in the elevator with him and says, "That was the same woman I just operated on. She died on the operating table. Didn't you see the red wristband she was wearing?" The woman in the elevator with him just smiled, raised her arm, and said, "You mean like this one?"
Hey guys, I've been super busy lately, so that's why I've been absent on TikTok, but I'm back, and what I wanted to address today was TikTok Marketplace. So if you guys are new to the app, then you probably don't know that when you reach 100,000 followers, TikTok allows you to partner with them so that brands can send you products and you can review them. This also includes promoting purposes. If you're not sure to use TikTok Marketplace, you can make sure that you can DM me on Instagram, and my link is in my bio. I don't post on there. It's just strictly for communication purposes, but in like a year or so, I may get into that. It's just not really my thing. But yeah, DM me on there and we can definitely talk it out about products you want to send me, and I will be honest, if I review them, I am not going to lie about whether or not I like them. And I'm not going to be harsh. I'm just saying that if you, for example, give me like a broken product or like a stiff slime, I'm not going to lie about it. So yes, slime especially, but other things as well. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah.
My sister and I have always been mistaken as twins. I'm 19 and she's 16, but we have the same height, skin tone, and similar voice. She also has a habit of being a copycat, from the way I dress to hobbies, even piercings. I know it's cute if you look at it from the outside, but sometimes it gets annoying. Like, yeah, we are quite close too, but why does she always happen to pick up everything I pick up? One afternoon, I was tidying up some costumes in my college showroom and found a rather cute brown and pink wig. It looks like a mushroom. I put it on, think it looks rather funny, so I snapped a picture and posted it to my Instagram. I received a text from my sister asking if I really cut my hair. I didn't mention it was a wig. While I somewhat have a feeling that she might copy that too, I lied and replied yes. I came home that weekend and lo and behold, my sister emerged with the same silly brown and pink bob cut, except this one is on her permanent hair. She was surprised that I arrived with my hair still long, then realized that I liked her. She was furious that she had to cut that silly hairstyle because she thought I had it. Our parents think that it's a really bad joke and wanted me to cut my hair too to make it up to her.
I found this old video from like 7-8 months ago when I first started TikTok, and I've been watching it over and over because it's so cringy. And yesterday I hit 300k, which you guys are amazing. The support is so sometimes I forget how to speak. The support is so overwhelming. I love my slime squad, and so I wanted to go back and take a look at this video, and I don't even know what I was trying to do with the slow-mo. Like, I just had no idea. I think this was like my slime swirl tutorial, and then I didn't like do the voiceover. Like, no one needed the tutorial, and I just never ended up posting it. Where even is the slime at this moment? Like, okay, it's back, and I just don't know how to center it. It's not zoomed in. Oh my god. At least back then, I had a pretty professional background going for me. Honestly, I like the marble better, so that's why I decided to stick to it. My god, we've come so far.
My best friend was toxic. Story time. Growing up, I had this best friend who we're gonna name Keisha. And since my mom died when I was a baby, Keisha's mom kind of stepped up and became a motherly figure to me. And even though I appreciated it, I don't think Keisha did. Because she would always make these rude comments like, she's not your real mom, or she doesn't love you as much as she loves me because I'm her actual daughter. And it really bothered me, but I chose to ignore it because I loved Keisha's mom like my own mom. So this one time on Mother's Day, I was at Keisha's house hanging out with her and her mom. And Keisha had this really bad attitude just because I was there. Her attitude was so bad that I didn't even want to be there. So eventually I asked if I could go home, but Keisha's mom said I didn't have to and not to let Keisha's attitude ruin our day. And when her mom said that, it really set her off. And she said something that I would never forgive her for. Keisha turns to me and opens up her disgusting mouth to say, "Your mother is dead. You should be spending Mother's Day at a cemetery." I broke my best friend's finger in half. Story time. When we were younger, me and my best friend used to play fight all the time. And it was super fun, but sometimes things would get out of hand. One day when we were play fighting, we decided that we were going to use tree branches and pretend they were swords. Was it a dangerous idea? Yeah. But was it fun? Yeah. But at first everything was cool. You know, we were laughing, nobody was getting hurt. Until my friend started to get really aggressive for some reason. So he kept on accidentally hitting me in the hands. Now, of course, I was getting really frustrated, so I was like, if you hit me again, I'm not gonna play with you. But he doesn't listen, and he does it again. So I decided to quit. I was gonna walk away. But instead of letting me walk away, my best friend put his hand on the ground and was like, "Here, hit me in the hand, you big baby." So I took my branch and I swung it really hard at his hand. But I only hit his index finger. I heard this loud snapping noise and I thought it was the branch. But instead of the branch, his finger snapped in half. My best friend locked me in a car trunk. Story time. So when I was in middle school, I had this best friend who we're gonna name Ashley. And Ashley was pretty mean to me. She would borrow my stuff and never give it back, ask me for money and never pay me back, and she would also make fun of me in front of people to make herself seem better. But she never tried to harm me until this one day. I was at her house and she asked me to play hide and seek, so I was like, sure. But it was just the two of us, so I thought it was pretty weird. She then said before we start, she wanted to show me some of her favorite hiding spots, so I was like, okay. Then she takes me outside to her mom's car and tells me that she likes to hide in the trunk. Then she asked me if I wanted to see what it was like in there, and I was like, sure, I guess. So she opens the front door to the car, pops the trunk, and I get inside and she closes it on top of me. Now I was fine until I realized she walked away and left me in the trunk to die. I was in there screaming for 2 hours, and the only reason I was let out is because her mom heard me screaming inside of the trunk when she had to go get groceries.
If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. 2 boys picked up a girl on the side of the road while they were on their way to a school dance. In the car, she kept saying that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. But when the night ended and they were about to drop her off, the girl accidentally left with the jacket. So the boys said that they would just come back the next day to get it. But when they came back and knocked on her door, they discovered something that would make them question what is real and what isn't. An old woman opened the door and asked them who they were looking for. After talking to her for a while, it was revealed that the girl they found on the side of the road was her daughter. But the thing is, she had been dead for 12 years. years. She was killed in a car accident at the same street corner they first saw her. The old woman pointed to a cemetery down the road and said, "That's where we buried her." The boys didn't believe her at first. They'd spent the whole night with this girl, so they knew that she had to be real. But they went to the cemetery and saw the boy's jacket draped over a gravestone. And on the gravestone was the girl's name and the date of her death, exactly 12 years ago to the day.
Hey guys, it's Maria and welcome back to another Elmer's Slime review. Today we're doing, what am I even saying? I've never done an Elmer's Slime review before, but this is a store-bought Elmer's Slime review. I don't even know how to speak anymore. It's super pretty and clear. Not 100% clear though. It definitely has some fogginess to it, which I'm not sure why that happened, but it does. So you have to be aware of that, but I didn't mind it too much. It was a putty texture, super thick, but still stretchy for a putty. I really liked it. It smelled like oranges and bubblegum. Thumbs up.
This is the story of the time that I got caught shoplifting. So I was friends with this girl, I think it was my freshman year of high school, and one day we decided that we wanted to go to the mall after school. So her mom picked us up, and my friend had decided to take out all of her books out of her book bag and just bring her empty bag. I don't remember talking about it like before we got there, but we were talking about how earlier that day in one of our classes, this kid that we were friends with was talking about how he finessed a backpack right from Kohl's and nobody even noticed. So we were like, wow, is it really that easy? Like, let's do it. So we go into JCPenney and we start taking a bunch of clothes into the dressing rooms. We took off the tags and put them in her bag. As she was leaving, she decided she wanted to finesse a new purse. So she was like, here, take my bag and then I'm gonna take a new one. So then we literally stand in the middle of JCPenney and we start praying that we don't get caught, like for part 2.
I cut off a little girl's ponytail. Story time. When I was in elementary school, I used to have this super cute Mickey Mouse backpack. It had Mickey Mouse on it and he was sitting there and he was smiling like he was so proud that I owned him. You know, he was real happy that I was his owner. Well, one day when I was at school, this stupid ugly girl named Paige thought it would be so funny to take her markers and color all over Mickey's face. She scribbled all over him. He wasn't even recognizable afterwards. I was so mad. So I was like, I'm gonna get her back. Oh yeah, I'm getting her back. Now, every day, Paige would have this super long ponytail, and she always talked about it. It was like her most prized possession. She loved that ponytail, just like I loved my Mickey Mouse backpack. So I went over to my desk, I grabbed the scissors out of it, walked up behind Paige, gently grabbed her ponytail so I can get a good cutting angle on it. And then I may have took my scissors and snipped it right off. And when she turned around, I was standing there like...
If a website ever asks you these questions, don't do what she did. Once there was a girl named Masha who heard that there's a new service that gives everyone free internet access. So she decided to use it, but this would lead to something horrifying for Masha and her family. After she connected to this internet service, a web page popped up asking her to register some information, but the questions were oddly personal. It asked, what's your usual mode of transportation? With a photo of a bus, a boat, a train, and a plane. Masha took her bike to school every day, so she clicked on the train instead. But the next day, the local news showed that there was a horrific train crash that killed everyone on board. Masha thought that this was a coincidence, but soon she'd realize that she made a deadly mistake. Later, she needed to use the internet again, so she logged back in. This time it asked, what kind of home do you live in? Along with 4 different pictures of different types of homes. She clicked apartment even though her and her family lived in a house. And the next day, the apartment building near her school burned down. The police suspected arson. Then she went back to the internet server one last time, but this time it showed a photo of her mother, father, sister, and herself with the question, who is your favorite family member?
My daughter Savannah is the CEO of faking illness to get out of school. So when she does not feel like being there, she will go to the nurse's office and complain to them that she is really not feeling good so that they call me and I have to go get her. Well, one day after this happens, I walk into the administrative office and everybody is really concerned because Savannah is sitting in a chair like so dramatically like, hi, Mom. And like when I saw her, I burst out laughing. I was like, oh my God, are you okay? And everybody looked at me like I was some really bad mom. Like, oh my God, why aren't you more concerned? But as we were walking out, she was walking really slow and actually didn't look good. So even I was a little concerned. I was like, oh my God, honey, are you okay? Until we got to the car when Savannah looks at me and goes, you know what, Mom? I feel better now. And I was like, Savannah, are you serious? And she's like, Mom, do you maybe want to go to Starbucks and have like a girls' day? And I was like, honey, what kind of question is that? You know I do.
When I was little, I found my mom's credit card. And, being a 6-year-old, I saw my mom putting the credit card on her phone, and I knew how she did it. So, I decided that I was going to put it on my phone. So I put it on my phone and I was downloading Roblox because I thought, hey, I can play with my friends here. That day, I spent $2,000 worth of freaking money on Robux. Let's just say a lot of my friends thought I was really cool and rich. When my mom found out, I hid from her for seriously like a day, and then once I got in there, she wasn't mad. She just said I was Captain Robux.
What would you do if someone said this to you? Once there was a girl in Korea who got in an elevator in the apartment building that she was living in when a stranger came in and told her something that was absolutely terrifying. This stranger came into the elevator with her and tried to make some small talk. He looked at the elevator buttons and said, "Oh, I see that you live on the 14th floor. I live on the 13th floor." She gave him a friendly response and even tried to flirt a little bit. She thought that he was attractive and wondered if they would get to know each other better. But things quickly took a horrifying turn. When the elevator arrived at the 13th floor, the man got off and said, "See you soon." But as the doors closed, he pulled out a knife from his jacket and with a terrifying smile said, "Upstairs." Then he ran towards the stairs. By this time, it was too late. The elevator doors were already closed. She tried to push as many buttons as possible, but it was of no use. She was stuck inside the elevator, unable to do anything, as the elevator made its way up to the 14th floor.
We put our teacher in the hospital. Story time. My 6th grade class was so freaking bad, you guys. I mean, I wasn't, but the rest of the kids were horrible. Our classroom was located on the 2nd floor, so sometimes kids would throw things out the window and try to hit the kids on the ground. And normally it would just be things like pencils or crumbled up pieces of paper, nothing that could really hurt anybody, right? But one day while we were taking a test, my teacher had realized she forgot something in her car, so she left us in the classroom by ourselves. And some kids in my class thought it would be perfect to use this opportunity to cheat. So there was one kid in my class, and we're gonna name him Chris, but he decided to be a lookout, so he stood near the window to keep an eye out for the teacher. Well, when he saw her coming, the rest of the kids weren't done cheating yet, so they told him to cause a distraction. So he runs over to his desk, grabs the biggest textbook he can find, and throws it out the window at the teacher. The book hits her in the face, and it busted her bottom lip open. It was so bad that the school had to send her to the hospital.
Story time about how I got caught skipping school almost every day of my senior year. So our school had just started this new thing where you fill out all your contact information online. And my dad was like, "Okay, yeah, just fill yours out." And it pretty much was who can pick you up, who can make early dismissals for you, who they can call if you're in trouble. Well, I decided to be a sneaky little bastard and put my boyfriend in for every single one of those contacts. I would start school around 7:30 a.m. and I would go to the nurse's office at like 9 a.m. and she would call and my boyfriend would act like my dad and be like, "Okay, yeah, just let her drive home." Well, my guidance counselor noticed after about 3 months of me never being at school. So she called the number hoping to speak to my dad. But instead she got my boyfriend. And he just thought it was a random person, so he didn't act like my dad. Because neither of us knew. Like for part 2.
I set her on fire. Story time. When I was a toddler, I used to love touching stuff that I was not supposed to. And I'm talking about really dangerous stuff too. Like the stove, scissors, anything sharp really. But the one thing I really liked was fire. It was so bad that I used to sneak into my mom's purse, grab her lighter, and just sit there and play with it. Like, what in the demon child was wrong with me? So one day at my brother's football game, there was this lady sitting in front of us, and she had this huge hat on. And I guess I was really bored because I had nothing to do, so I snuck into my mom's purse, grabbed her lighter, and started to spark it on this lady's hat. And everybody was so focused on the football game that they didn't even realize what I was doing until it was too late. And when my mom looked over to see what I was doing, the lady's hat had already caught fire. So my mom starts to panic. She rips off the lady's hat and starts stomping it on the ground to put out the fire. The lady turns around and she's so confused. And apparently I was laughing the whole time. I ripped her tooth out. Story time. When I was in 3rd grade, I had this friend and we're gonna name her Emma. And Emma was really nice, but she was just very overdramatic. So one day she comes to school and she is freaking out because she has a loose tooth. And it was bothering her so bad to the point where she was whining about it all day. And I was like, okay, girl, calm down. It's just a tooth. It's gonna fall out. Don't worry. Stop whining about it. But she would not shut up. So I was like, Emma, do you want me to pull your tooth out? Because you're getting on my nerves. And she was like, no, it's gonna hurt. Don't touch me. So I was like, if I pull it out, it's not gonna bother you anymore. So then Emma was like, fine, just pull it out. So I tried everything to get this tooth out of her mouth. I tried my hands, some string, some pliers. Just kidding. We didn't have pliers in 3rd grade. And nothing was working. That tooth was hanging on for dear life, literally. But then I had an idea. I told her to bite down on my pencil using her loose tooth. And then as soon as she did, I yanked it out. And her tooth came out with the pencil, but so did a lot of blood. She kept the pencil. My aunt tried to poison my mom. Story time. So one thing to keep in mind is that my mom and my aunt do not get along. And a few years ago, my aunt was going through some financial troubles, so she had to come live with us for a little while. And since she was going through a little bit of troubles, her and my mom came up with this deal that my aunt would just help around the house, you know, like cook dinner, clean up, stuff like that. Well, about 2 weeks after she moved in, my mom started to become really sick. And we literally had no idea what was causing it. My mom was just having severe stomach pains. And it got so bad that my mom ended up passing out and we had to rush her to the emergency room. Well, they ended up running some tests and come to find out my mom had bleach in her system. So my dad gets angry and starts questioning my aunt, and my aunt confesses to putting bleach inside of my mom's food every time she cooked for her. It was so bad that if we waited any longer, my mom would have died.
Part 2 of catching my neighbor's mom talking smack about me. So my best friend tells me all these things that my neighbor was saying about me, obviously. And I got really upset, so I went home and I just started to cry. Because for some reason I felt like when I was younger, every one of my friends' parents hated me. And I never really knew why. I was always the type of person to let my friends do whatever they want and encourage them in doing whatever they want, whether that's breaking the rules or following the rules. So I mean, I guess that could be something, but I'm just being a supportive friend, sorry, I got off topic. So when I told my mom, she was like, okay, come with me, I'm gonna knock on her door. And I was like, heck no, I do not feel like dealing with this. Mom, you deal with it. So she calls her up in the phone, puts her on speakerphone, confronts her about the situation, and this lady starts going on about how she loves me like I'm her own child, saying that I was never a bad influence on her daughter, and that she actually wanted me to hang out with her daughter more. That's not what she was saying at Bagel.
My friend ate her pets. Story time. When I was in college, living in the dorms, we were not allowed to have pets. And at the time, I was friends with this girl, and we're gonna name her Vicky. And she was known for not following the rules. So one day, Vicky decides that she's gonna get some pet snails and bring them into the dorms. So she buys 4 snails, buys them a little bowl, gets them little decorations, and sets them up inside of her room. And she was able to keep them a secret for about a month. Until one day, we had room inspections. So the RAs go around inspecting everybody's room, and then they come to mine. And while they're in my room, I text Vicky and I'm like, hey girl, they're coming to your room next. Make sure you hide your pet snails. And she texts me back and she's like, oh shoot, what am I supposed to do with them? And jokingly, I was like, eat them. They do it in France all the time. So after a while, the inspections are over and I head over to Vicky's room. And when she opened the door, she looked kind of sad. So I was like, what's wrong? Did they find your snails? And she was like, no, I ended up eating them. And I look over and their bowl is empty.
I am gonna cry. Okay. So basically, me and my sister share a bathroom. We have shared a bathroom for quite a while now. And I have a pink toothbrush that I've been using for maybe 3 months now, maybe longer. It's a good toothbrush. So I go upstairs last night to brush my teeth, as I should. And I grab my toothbrush and I realize the bristles are wet. So I look at my sister and I'm like, did you use my toothbrush? And her eyes got really wide and she was like, yeah, why? And I'm like, how long have you been using this toothbrush? And she said, for a few months now. So me and my sister have been using the same toothbrush for over 3 months.
Did you know that gummy bears actually have a really dark history?
So, gummy bears were invented in the early 1900s, and they were originally called dancing bears.
Now, in Europe following World War I, dancing bears were quite the attraction.
And people didn't see anything wrong with this, which I find crazy.
The bears would often be chained, made to wear silly clothing, and usually their teeth would have been completely removed so that they were considered safe for the public.
These bears were a very popular attraction at fairs and carnivals in most European cities, and this is literally what gummy bears were based off of. I had no idea they had such a dark history, and obviously later on they changed it from dancing bears to gummy bears, which is a lot better, and they're definitely not associated with that anymore, but it's definitely sad to know the history.
Story time. So ever since I was like 8 years old, I've always gotten headache. And I don't know why. I drink water, I eat enough food, and I get enough sleep, but I still just be getting headaches for no reason. Anyways, my freshman year, someone convinced me that I had a brain tumor. I really believed it too. It was quite embarrassing. So I was doing cheer at the time, and I was getting nosebleeds like every single day along with a raging headache. And they would always happen randomly. Like I wasn't doing anything to cause them. It just happened. So one day in the middle of my math class, my nose just started bleeding. Before that, I had a terrible headache, and the girl that was sitting next to me told me my nose was bleeding. As I'm cleaning my nose, the girl's like, I noticed that you get a lot of headaches and nosebleeds. My grandpa had a brain tumor, and I think that's what you have. And I was just sitting there like, I guess this is how God wanted me to go out. The whole day I was stressing. Then when I get home, I start writing my mom a goodbye letter and picking out the clothes I want at my funeral. Then I told my sister about it, and she smacked me upside the head and called me stupid.
This is a story of the time that I caught my neighbor's mom talking smack about me. So I don't know about you guys, but every single Wednesday in my middle school, we would have a bagel sale. And some people's parents would come in to help out. And my neighbor's mom was one of those parents. And I had a best friend at the time whose mom would also work at the bagel sales. But this best friend of mine, her mom never let us hang out with each other because she felt that I was a bad influence on her. When in reality, it was the complete opposite. She was the one that snuck the boys in her house, if you guys remember that story time, where they peed in a flower pot. So basically her mom wouldn't let us hang out. And sometimes my friend would go with her mom in the morning, basically as a ride to school, and to help out with the bagels too. And one day when she went in with her mom, my neighbor's mom also was there too. So my friend starts eavesdropping into their conversation, and my friend's mom brings me up and says how much of a bad kid I am and a bad influence. And my neighbor's mom was like, oh wow, that's my neighbor. Like we always suspected something bad about her. Our whole entire neighborhood knows this about her. Basically making stuff up about me. So then I go home crying, tell my mom.
My uncle tried to kidnap me. Story time. Growing up, I was really close to my uncle. I mean, he was like my best friend. But then something happened between him and the rest of my family, and I wasn't allowed to see him anymore. So at this point, a week had passed since I seen my uncle. I was at school, about to get on the bus to go home, but I got a text message from my uncle. And it said, hey, I'm out front. Your dad asked me to pick you up. And I thought it was weird, but I didn't think too much about it. So instead of getting on the bus, I found him and got in his car. And once I got in the car, he started acting really strange. So I sent a text to my dad and let him know that uncle was taking me home. Or so I thought he was taking me home. But instead of going to my house, he started driving past my neighborhood. And right in that moment, my dad texted me back and said, get out of that car. Do not go with your uncle. He is a bad man. So the moment we came to a red light, I jumped out of the car and started running for my life. And instead of chasing after me, he peeled off. And he was never seen again.
Why you should be really careful how you treat people. And also why you should stick up for people. When I was in 8th grade, I was really good friends with this kid named Damon. Me, him, and this other friend of mine, we were all at the same table. In English class, we would joke around, talk about the same TV shows and movies. We were the loudest group by far. But near the end of the school year, Damon ended up moving. And it really sucked, but we said goodbye to Damon, who I should tell you was this small, short, funny, wisecracking kid. Didn't matter what you threw at him, he was super witty. So we said goodbye to him, we all went to 9th grade. It was either the end of 9th grade or the middle of sophomore year that I saw Damon again. He had transferred back to our school, saw him at a pep rally, and I was sitting by myself because I despised pep rally. He was like, Josadak, do you remember me? I was like, oh my gosh, David? He was so much taller, face looked different, his voice was deeper. This was obviously a different kid, but really happy to see me. So we started talking, catching up. Then I started noticing that he was getting hit in the back of the head with tiny paper balls. He wasn't even flinching. I looked behind me to see 3 boys throwing paper balls at him. What? Dude, do you see what they're doing? Yeah, I'm used to it. What? This was not the same witty boy that I knew. Oh my god, I'm running out of time. Watch part 2 to see my...
My brother tried to flush me down the toilet. Story time. A lot of you guys already know this, but I have an older brother, and when we were younger, he was really mean to me. Not mean, but like evil, okay? So when I was a baby, I required a lot of attention, which is normal, you know, babies require a lot of attention, but my brother did not like that at all. He was used to having all the attention, but then I came around and took it from him. So he decided that he was gonna get rid of me. So one day when my mom was giving me a bath, he had asked if he could help her. And she said yes, but I secretly think she was in on his plan. Because while they were bathing me, someone knocked on the door, so my mom left me and him in the bathroom alone to go answer the door. So I guess my brother was like, now's my chance to get rid of this little turd. So he takes me out of the bathtub. I can't talk or anything yet, so I don't know what's going on. Puts me headfirst in the toilet and starts to flush. And obviously I wasn't going down, so he took the plunger and he started to plunge me down the toilet. But before he could get me all the way down, my mom walked in and saved my life. Like, I could have drowned.
Part 2 of why you should watch out for the shy ones. When Mark looked me in the eyes, something was different. There was a darkness in his eyes that gave me the goosebumps. He was deeply sad, but it wasn't sadness. It was almost like despair. I thought to myself that he's just grieving, and if I were in his situation, I don't think I'd ever recover, so I respectfully left it at that. The next day, Mark was absent again. This is when a man starts hanging around the cafeteria during lunchtime. When I ask who he is, they tell me it's the counselor's husband. The rumors around the school kept getting worse, and they were making me angry. Another week goes by, and the atmosphere at the school literally turned to ice. The principal called all seniors to the gym for an announcement. This is when I see that same man that's been hanging around, and he tells us the shocking news. Mark killed his mother by choking her. I felt the blood in my veins freeze. This man continues to tell us that he's actually a detective and was conducting investigations at the school. Apparently one morning, Mark had asked his mother for the car keys. She refused to give them to him because she needed them. That's when he jumped on her and strangled her. Then he came to school, sat next to me, and gave me his English homework as if that was the main problem of the day. He then went home and called the police later that day. Every now and then I think about Mark's empty eyes staring back at me.
One of my fans has a crazy mother. Story time. So me and my mom decided to go to Walmart to pick up a couple things. While I was there, I ran into a little girl who happened to be a fan of mine, and she was with her mother, and her mother was wearing this black shiny bracelet. Just keep that in mind. So they come up to me and they're super nice at first, and her mom's like, hey, my daughter's a big fan of yours. Do you mind taking a picture with her? So of course I'm being really nice back, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? The little girl comes over to me, and she was really cute too, but she stands next to me so her mom can take a picture of us. Then her mom goes, give him a hug, sweetie. And I didn't really want to do that because of social distancing. But I didn't say anything. The little girl actually opened up her mouth and she was like, Mom, I don't think I can because of social distancing. And all I said was, yeah, it's probably best that we don't. As soon as I said that, her mom starts flipping out. She calls me a horrible person, makes her daughter unfollow me, and then they storm off. And me and my mom were just like, what? Then later on in the parking lot, as we're pulling off, something flies into the window and smacks me in the face. And when I picked it up, it was her mom's black bracelet.
Hey guys, it's Maria. We're reviewing the Grape/Nickelodeon slime today. As you can see, I opened this up. It was nicely packaged, but the bottom showed that the container was very small compared to what it seemed like. And there were no jelly cubes like the picture. However, I was so impressed with the glossiness. This stayed shiny and glossy throughout stretching it and bubble pops. And it wasn't the stretchiest, but it wasn't the stiffest either. It was like a putty. So it came with some model-like clay. It was super soft and some foam beads which mixed together to make it super thick. Needs some improvements, but a thumbs up.
My cousin Millie is 30 years old and is an ER nurse. Her birthday was a few days ago and we planned a birthday prank which was leaving a fake snake on her cake. All fun and games because we do this every year to every family member. Well, apparently this year Millie didn't want it, so she was pretty pissed at the fact that we didn't. Now, a few days ago while I was in school, I got a call from Millie during lunch. I thought it would be her saying she's picking me up, but it wasn't. She proceeded to tell me that my mother had passed away in a car accident. My heart dropped and I felt like puking. My mother and I don't have the best relationship, but I still love her. Millie began to tell me the details of the death and what exactly happened to the point I hung up on her and called my mother. My mom, who was supposedly at work as a nurse, didn't pick up and I ended up running to the bathroom. I called my dad, bawling my eyes out and telling him what happened. He didn't understand what I was talking about because he called my mom right before I called. He made me explain everything and understandably he was pissed. He picked me up from school and called my mom in the car just to prove that she was alive and okay. That night my aunt, who's not Millie's mom, called a meeting to her house and we all talked it out. They were all pretty much disgusted with Millie as she tried to justify her choices, but she ended up apologizing.
This is the reason why everybody thought I dropped out of high school. Over the 4 years of high school, I was probably in school a total of 100 times altogether. And this wasn't because I was lazy, I mean partially, but it was mostly because I have really bad stomach problems. So I always had these doctor's appointments, I was always missing school because my stomach hurt. So then my junior year, since my attendance was really bad, they decided to put me on home instruction. This means that teachers will come to my house for about 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. And my teachers had to bring with them these time slips. For example, saying that they saw me from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And when I was a minor, my dad had to sign it. And when they hand in those time slips, those are the hours they're getting paid for. So I had this one teacher. She was my history teacher, but we would literally just gossip the entire time. She was mad chill. Sometimes, though, she would cancel on me, and sometimes I would cancel on her. But this was my senior year, so I was 18. So I was able to sign the time slips. So I saw her once a month when I was supposed to see her 4 times a month. So every time she came, I signed 4 time slips. I got the credit, she got the check.
My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I get a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried, knowing her boyfriend left her because of me.
I faked my death? Story time. Growing up, my older brother would never listen to our mom. Like, whatever she said, he would do the complete opposite. One day my mom had got us these basketballs and she told us to not play with them in the house. But of course, my brother did not listen. So my mom leaves us alone for like 2 seconds and my brother starts throwing his basketball around. And I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? And he's like, mind your business, little boy. And I was like, Mom told us not to play with those in the house. And I guess I was being annoying because he threw his basketball at my head. And it hits me and I fall over. And in my head, I'm like, I could do one of 2 things. I could tell my mom and get him in trouble. Or I could fake my death. So I pretended that I was dead. And I was sitting on the floor like, and I sat there for a long time and I really tried hard not to breathe or move. So he runs over to me and he's trying to see if I'm okay and he notices that I'm not moving. And he really thought that I had died. So he starts to cry and freak out. And then it makes me laugh. And then he beat me up. And then I started crying.
Hey guys, today we're reviewing another Nickelodeon slime. This is their Blueberry Pie Clear Slime. It's supposed to be scented as well. The first thing I noticed was that this was extremely underfilled. It was only about half full, and that definitely disappointed me a lot. And then the second thing I noticed was the scent. It did smell a little bit artificial to me, but it did definitely have a strong scent. Then I pulled it out of the container. It was super crumbly and hard to take out. It took me forever. This was only a little bit of the footage. I started to play with it and the color was beautiful and clear. It was one of those slimes that fogged up quickly. Some slimes do that. The pom-poms in it were super fun to pop. And they weren't the fuzzy kind, so the hair didn't get in the way of the slime. Because some pom-poms have hair on them and then mixing it in makes the slime stiff. It was more of a putty and it had a really rippy texture. You couldn't really stretch it at all. Honestly, I was kind of on the edge for this one, but I had to end up giving it a thumbs down. I just wish I had more of the slime and a little bit more stretch. So yeah, that was a big turnoff for me.
This is why you need to watch out for the shy ones. I'm European and when I was 16, I attended a Catholic high school in the States. All of it was new to me and I felt like I was in a teen movie sometimes. Another new thing to me was having to change classes every hour. Where I'm from, you sit 5 hours at the same desk with the same people nearby and just the professors alternate every hour. I sat next to this guy named Mark in my English class. He was nice and friendly despite being introverted. It amazed me that whenever I talked to him, he never looked me in the eye. He would always look around or at the ground, often moving his eyes quickly. I assumed it was a way to combat his shyness. One morning, I sit next to Mark as usual and start talking. I asked him if I could copy his homework as I didn't finish the last part of mine, and he kindly accepted. The next day, I noticed that Mark is absent. A few days go by and rumors start circulating in the hallways that poor Mark, on his way home, found his mother dead. 2 weeks pass and the rumors start getting out of hand. Things like how his mother's head was in the oven or that she was robbed. Then one day Mark came back to school and he seemed extremely sad. I put my arm around him in class and told him I'm sorry. This is when for the first time ever, he looked me straight in the eye and thanked me. However, something about this was off.
My mom spanked my bully. Story time. When I was in 3rd grade, I used to hate going to the bus stop because there was a boy there who would bully me. And it got so bad that some days I would go home crying. I felt like I couldn't do anything because he was much older than I was. So of course I told my mom and she called the school and they did nothing about it. So then my mom somehow found out who his parents were and she went to go talk to them. And all they said about it was boys will be boys, there's really nothing we can do about it. And then that's when my mom was like, if y'all don't handle it, I will. So the next morning she told me to go to the bus stop and if my bully bothered me to come back home and tell her. So I went to the bus stop and of course He bothered me. So I went back home, told my mom, and she immediately grabbed her belt and dragged me back to the bus stop. She walked up to that boy and was like, "Are you bothering my son?" And the boy was like, "Yes, I am. What are you gonna do about it, Grandma?" My mom grabbed that boy by his shirt, turned him around, and started spanking him with her belt. And it was so loud. Literally got his cheeks clapped.